Okay, my name is Oscar Diaz, and I will be your presenter. Okay, the purpose of this webinar is to inform licensees of the continuing education requirements and the related laws in efforts to maintain and increase compliance. Please hold off on asking any questions until the end of the presentation, and we will answer them in the order received. Here is an agenda of the items we will cover today. This mouse is not working. We'll be covering an overview of Business and Professions Code 5600.05. We will go over the requirement similarities. We will provide examples of acceptable ADA coursework and examples of acceptable ZNCD coursework. We will provide a summary and helpful links with references at the end. So Business and Professions Code 5600.05 requires architects to complete 5 hours of continuing education on zero net carbon design, in addition to 5 hours on disability access requirements, for a total of 10 hours as a condition of license renewal. This applies to all licensed architects, regardless of how long they have held a license. This law does not allow for any waiver or extension. Give me 1 second. Let me try to reach. I'm trying to hit the link. So So Business and Professions Code 5600.05 subsection A, it states that as a conditional license renewal, you guys should complete the continuing education coursework pursuant. Yes, they can. Yeah. No? Oh my goodness.
You have to switch to that screen.
Okay. Okay, under this law, the board conducts random audits of licensees' continuing education records to verify the coursework completions. For that matter, architects are required to maintain coursework documentation for a minimum of 2 years from the date of their license renewal. These regulations detail the requirements for the courses and the trainers. California Code of Regulations 165 details the the requirements for the courses and the trainers for the disability access requirements. California Code of Regulations Title 16, Section 166 details the requirements for the courses and the trainers, including the summative assessment for coursework regarding zero net carbon design. Architects, I encourage you to make note of these regulations and familiarize yourselves with them, as these provide the criteria you need to determine if the course or the provider meets the requirements. Now, this is important because we often get questions of how do we determine what coursework meets the requirements. For that matter, CCR, California Code of Regulation 165, it details all those requirements for any coursework regarding ADA. So if you access this regulation, you will see all the criteria that is required for it to be acceptable. The same goes for zero net carbon design. California Code of Regulations 166 details all that criteria that is necessary. Next slide. Some of the similarities from the coursework requirements are they both require 5 hours of continuing education. It is required for ADA and for zero net carbon design. Courses can be either in person or live webinar, or you can also take a recorded course that has a minimum 70% passing score. This means you could take a recorded course, whether audio, video, or booklet form, as long as it provides an assessment at the end, and the assessment has a minimum of 70% passing score to receive credit. The courses must be presented by trainers or educators with knowledge and expertise in designing that specific field, either ADA or ZNCD. And qualified trainers or presenters must possess either an architect, professional, civil, mechanical, or structural license with a minimum of 3 years of this demonstrable direct experience in the design field. Or they may also have an International Code Council certification, California certification program as one of the following: a commercial building inspector, a California Buildings Plant Examiner, or any of those under the International Code Council. Please note that this is just a few of the similarities and not all the requirements. As previously mentioned, California Code of Regulations 165 details all the criteria and requirements for ADA, and California Code of Regulations 166 details all the criteria and requirements for zero net carbon design. Now you will see examples of acceptable ADA coursework. Such as Federal Americans with Disability Act of 1990, Accessibility Design Standards, California specific statutes and regulations regarding ADA, and California Building Code, Chapter 11A and Chapter 11B. Disability access requirements means a provision, standard, or regulation under the state or federal law requiring compliance with the standards for making new construction and existing facilities accessible to persons with disabilities. Again, these are just a few examples of the courses that are acceptable. As long as they meet the criteria mentioned above and the requirements of CCR 165, the course will be accepted. Above you will see examples of acceptable coursework for zero net carbon design. All coursework topics, subject matters, and course materials shall be pertinent to the practice of architecture and related to the code provisions of an architect's professional services relating to zero net carbon design. Some of these examples include climate sustainability and resilient design, energy efficient building strategy systems, embodied carbon analysis, existing building deep energy retrofits, or existing buildings adaptive reuse, and renewable energy strategies and systems. Zero net carbon design means architectural designs, including resilient designs of new construction and/or existing facilities that produce on-site or equitably procure from off-site enough carbon-free renewable energy to meet the building's operations and energy consumption demands. So as previously mentioned with ADA coursework, there will be many courses also that say achieving zero net carbon, anything that's related to that field, zero net carbon, or any of the topics that we mentioned above will be acceptable. It does not have to match exact word for word with the objectives, from your course objectives when you take the course, it does have to address some of these. Okay. In summary of what we have reviewed today, the California Law Business and Professions Code 5600.05, I'll touch on a question, requires architects to complete 5 hours of continuing education on zero net carbon design, in addition to 5 hours of disability access requirements, for a total of 10 hours as a condition of license renewal. This is important because many times we get questions of, for example, an architect will call in and say, I did not complete my required CE, but my license is up for renewal. What do I do? Well, you are required to complete the CE because it is a condition of license renewal, which means you should not be renewing a license without having your CE completed before your current expiration date. Now, if that does happen, we advise you to get the CE done as soon as possible. And you do have a 30-day window to renew your license before you are charged a late fee. That does not mean you have a waiver or extension. In essence, you are renewing late, but we don't want you to renew without having your CE completed, because you do have the possibility of being audited by the board. And if we find that you, in the audit, through the course of audit, that the coursework was not completed prior to renewing your license, that is a violation, and you could face penalties, which nobody wants to do that. We do not want to harm our architects by giving them any type of fines, but at the same time, we advise you to renew your license on time and to complete your continuing education prior to renewing your license. So in summary of that, CCR 165, California Code of Regulations 165, again, it details all the criteria and the requirements for disability access. And CCR 166 details all the criteria and requirements for the courses and providers for zero net carbon design. On your screen, you will see a list of helpful links and references. Our main link and reference that we use is our website, www.cab.ca.gov. If you do the /LIC for licensees, then /CE, it'll direct you directly to our continuing education. And there you will find a link where it has all the links for the Business and Professions Code 5600.05, as well as links for California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Section 165, and Section 166. On our website, you will also find a link that says, under the CE section, you will find a link for CE document submission. There, once you renew a license, you can access that portal and renew your license, and you can upload a proof of your certificates of completion, or you can email them directly to our board, whichever is easier for you. We'll now open up the floor to any questions.
Trying to turn on data view, so I'm allowing Mike. This is Dustin Goffrin.
Yes, hi. Can you speak more about the presenter's qualifications? It said something about being like either a licensed architect, engineer, or whatever. I had completed some coursework through the U.S. Access Board, which focuses on the Americans with Disabilities Act, and they present certificates of completion that meet the CAB's requirements. But I was just wondering if you could speak more about the presenter's qualifications.
So they would be detailed under the regulations you said for disability.
Yes,
There would be detailed all the criteria. It's just too much for me to list. You will find it under California Code of Regulation 165. And again, we provide that. The link to that information is on our website.
okay. Yeah, because they do a series for California licensed architects. Like they present something like once a month. But it looks like I'll have to go into that regulation to look into it more.
Yeah, and also for the simple fact is that the responsibility falls on the architect and the course provider because we do not have the authority to pre-approve any courses or providers.
Understood.
Thank you for your questions. Next.
I believe this is Frank Bostrom.
Mr. Bostrom, you're muted right now.
I turned him to. Mr. Bostrom, it sounds like you're having microphone issues. We're not hearing you. It's coming out garbled. Yeah, nope, still garbled.
Yeah, we're having audio issues, sir. Can you please type your question on the chat? See.
I don't think there's anything. I mean, it's just coming out garbled.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bostrom, we're having audio issues. I will post my email address that you can email me directly your question. Okay. On the chat, I have posted my email address for any of you that have questions that you can directly email me. And I will also put our board's email address that you can submit any other questions that do come up after this presentation.
Okay, next one is Emily. That says Emily's on.
Hi, thank you. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi. Thank you for this presentation. I have a question that's not related to CE content. I'm wanting to know how many candidates sit for the CSE exam every year?
I do not have that information as that is not related to my program, ma'am.
Okay.
If you can email cab@dca.ca.gov, your question will be directed to the right channel and they will respond to your inquiry.
Thank you, Oscar. I appreciate that.
Welcome, ma'am.
Sarah Costa. She is next in line. Sarah? You may have to unmute yourself on your computer.
I think my question might already have been answered. I wanted to know about submitting the coursework. And it looks like you have to wait to be audited before you submit your coursework.
No, we actually prefer you to submit it upon renewing your license. That way it's already uploaded on our database. And if you are selected for audit, you would most likely receive the notification of your results. Also, for the matter that we do know that architects are required to maintain it for 2 years. sometimes that could be hard to maintain records. So for that matter, we offer that option to upload at the time of renewal.
Also, our renewals are done via Connect. It's an online portal for application submission. And you would go ahead and upload at that time. You can upload it there with your renewal application. So renewals are going out right now and they go out as hard copy, but there is the option for you to go ahead, visit our website. We have that information included there, and you can go ahead, renew your license through that Connect application, and you'll get to a tab where it talks about the CE completion, and you can upload at that time any documentation you have before submitting and paying your fee. Does that help? Okay, let's see here. Frank, did you have another question, Frank? Okay, Jerry Freight, let me go ahead and enable your mic. Jerry? Are you still here?
I think he just left.
Oh, okay.
How
Are
you
you
doing?
there?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
Uh,
Jerry.
During your presentation of types of continuing education, you mentioned paper pamphlets. So is that still in play now that we can do this as the way we've done it in the past, with kind of like paper information, and then you take a test, and then you turn that back into the provider, and then they score the test and give you a certification. So is that still in play, or does this all have to be done via video?
It is
Present.
still in play. It is still acceptable. You're talking about recorded courses, correct?
Yeah, where they send you the course material, and then you read it, and then you take the little exams per chapter, and then you submit this test score back to the provider.
Yes, that is still acceptable as long as the assessment provides you, as long as the course provides you an assessment with the minimum passing score of 70%, we do accept that course material.
Okay, because the provider that I've been using for years, I think it was PhD, something like that.
I've been
They
getting
said-
a lot of calls from them. Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt, but yes, that's an issue with their interpretation of our regs. Whoever is giving that information is incorrect, because our regulations clearly state that you could take an in-person or live webinar or a recorded course, which that would fall under the recorded course.
So the paper, just doing it like like I did 2 years ago, the paper documents is still okay.
Yes, sir.
They haven't really, but they got kind of the wrong end of the stick, and they don't understand that yet. Huh?
Yeah, they misinterpreted
Nice.
the new regulations, sir.
Oh,
That was
okay.
brought to my attention recently, that their interpretation was that it's no longer accepted, when that's not the case. Recorded courses are still accepted.
And we're
So the-
working with the vendor to get them on board with the proper interpretation. All we look at is the certificate. So as long as you have a certificate that was awarded to you based on an exam, an assessment, and that assessment had a 70% minimum score to pass, we would give you the credit for that type of coursework, regardless of what PDH Academy is saying. But we are working with PDH Academy to get them on the same page, because this was, as Oscar indicated, just brought to our attention very recently that they were telling people this.
Yeah, they told me a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, I like the booklet style, because later, if you need a reference, you have like a physical printed reference for items that come up, you know, during your practice. So anyway, that's my pitch. So, well, thank you for that answer.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Mr. Frey.
Okay, we have Charles Kaminsky. And your mic is now on. Charles? Charles, are you there? Charles Kaminsky?
Hello? Hello?
Hi.
Okay, sorry, I had my microphone off. A couple of questions and a comment. I see on the renewal form, I renewed in 23, it said, do not submit your CE documentation with this renewal, but if you want to upload it, you can. So I am just trying to understand the clarification of what was just said, is that I don't have to submit my CE documentation with my renewal.
Correct. It is not required, but we highly suggest that you do in case you are audited.
Okay.
That way, you, like as mentioned, that way, in case you are audited, you don't have to go back to 2 years of documentation. You have already rest assured that you uploaded it when you renewed, and we have it in the database already.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. The second is, I want to get an understanding, is the continuing education credits, do they require a test, or can one attend a presentation to meet the 5 hours?
So you have the option to either attend an in-person or live webinar course, or you can take a recorded course that offers a test.
Okay, because a previous questioner asked about the U.S. Access Board, which offers ADA accessibility seminars once a month, and that is an hour-and-a-half presentation once a month. Okay, and the third is, and last, is the California AIA, as part of the introduction of the Net Zero, offered free courses to any architect, I'm assuming in California, without having to be an AIA, American Institute of Architects member. Is that still the case?
You would need to contact AIA to see whether that's still the policy. We
They
can't
only do
speak.
that for a year. They only do that for a year. Some of their courses were free for AIA members, but they offered that for a year. And I'm sorry if I'm interrupting, but hopefully that's helpful information.
No, that's very helpful.
Thank you.
So if I understand you correctly, when Net Zero was introduced, California AIA offered that as, my understanding was part of the pitch that AIA did to the California Architects Board to have this as a continuing education requirement. And so
Not to the board.
No, so it wasn't a pitch to get the requirement. They already worked with the legislature. They got a sponsor. They were going through with this regardless. But the effective date was to take place January 1st, 2023. So that's why they offered the courses for free, is that there would be little, if any, time, since this was their legislation that was put through, to get coursework. However, we did not realize that they were only going to do it for that 1 year. I mean, that's the information. I didn't have that.
Okay.
I knew that it likely wasn't going to be indefinitely. I did think it might be like the first couple of renewal cycles.
Okay.
But it was their legislation. They went to the legislature to get that pushed through. They simply advised the board that this was going to happen. We did not ask for it, and we did not have a say in it.
Okay, so
With the AIA, nothing's free.
what I understand you saying now is that if they're still offering it, one should check with the California AIA to see if it's still offered to non-AIA members at no cost.
Yes, I would suggest checking with them, but as someone just said, you know, AIA does prefer that people be members to get these courses. And you know, that's strictly within their purview.
Right. I understand that, and that's for their own continuing education credits.
So the course,
AIA.
that I did this year that they qualified for the zero net carbon, it was free for AIA members, but if you were not an AIA member, then it was like $25 or $35. So
That's still pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I got mine done through 3, and I know we're not supposed to promote them, but there are things out there that have free ones. I did all of mine this year for free because I searched around, but you know, you just have to search.
Yeah, and although I believe an email, there was a news blast that went out earlier, like a few months ago, regarding AIA, Sarah, and
NCARB.
NCARB. You know, we don't, you know, we're not endorsing any of those courses or pre-approving them. We just wanted individuals to have some avenues that they could look for. If you can find a course online that's free, that meets the requirements and the regulation, you can receive credit for it. It just has to meet those requirements. That's strictly what we go by.
I think the biggest thing is the certificate has to have those things listed. I think there was like 5 or 6 criteria listed on the certificate.
Right. The certificates do have to have that information. Correct.
Right. And the accessibility board or accessibilityonline.org provides certificates that have all that information on them. They're about 1.5 hours long, but they're good at providing those certificates.
Yeah, that sounds like those would likely be courses we would accept as long as it has that information on there.
Yeah, and the 3c-ren.org has those certificates for the zero net carbon. They do webinars just like the Accessibility Online guys do.
Okay, let's see. William O'Keefe. You may have to disable, re-enable your mic on your computer.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, so with your, I'll call it third slide, it did say acceptable zero net carbon design coursework, and you mentioned 5 items. So because before, and I took the AIA course as soon as it came out so that I could cover that 5 years, that 5 course requirement. So they do not need to say net zero in their description?
Correct.
Okay.
If you look at the regulation, California Code of Regulation 166, it provides you course topics and various examples. As mentioned, I only mentioned like 5 because I cannot fit that much more in the slide. But if you want a complete list of them, it would be on the regulation. Give me one moment here. I'll tell you what subsection exactly it would be. I believe it is. Stand by.
So it's 166C, and it
C.
says all CE course topics, subject matters, and course provisions of the architect's professional service relating to zero net carbon design, and it gives examples of zero net carbon design. Work topics or subjects may include energy efficient building systems, deep energy efficient retrofits of existing buildings, adaptive reuse, natural ventilation, daylighting, solar harvesting design, advanced energy efficiency strategies, including energy modeling, renewable energy strategies, embodied carbon analysis. And then also it mentions Cal Green. Now, that, as it says, are just examples of the coursework. So if it's along those veins, then it may very likely meet the requirement. Again, we don't have authority to approve or even pre-approve courses. The requirements are here. We will do our best to help as far as providing some, examples, but we can't look at a course, assess a particular course unless the document is submitted to us and we're looking at whether that coursework meets the requirements. That's all we're doing when we do the audit. We're not evaluating the content of the course, just that it meets those requirements specified in the case of zero net carbon design, what's in regulation 166.
Okay. Yeah, because I've been seeing courses with that kind of wording, but never said the word net zero. And so from somewhat work and videos, so I just assumed, oh well, those don't say the word net zero, so they're not acceptable. But it appears that, as you just described it, the character and content is what's important, not the word net zero.
Correct. As long as it has energy efficiency, renewable energy, reusable design.
Lowering embodied carbon, as long as it's relatable to those examples provided, like Marcus said, we will take that into consideration. If the course completely is non-relatable, it's talking about carbon emissions, then that's clearly not related to architecture, design, or buildings at all, so it will not count. But as long as it's relatable to the architectural design and achieving zero net carbon related to architecture, we will accept that.
Okay, great. Yeah, that was what was confusing me. Like I said, the only course that said the word net zero was the AIA course in the past year, and these others were more descriptions like you're talking about, which is great. So I'll now know that I can do that. So, all right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so Natalie, I don't want to even try to mispronounce that.
Thank you. It's Hagobian.
Hagobian? Okay.
Yes. So being a member of NCARB or AIA, is there any correlation or streamlining between those entities and CAB as far as when we complete courses through AIA, CA, or NCARB, that they transfer that information over to you guys?
No, none of that information is conveyed to us.
That's why we encourage architects to upload their own copies of certificates of completion so that they can know you did it yourself. And, you receive, also I forgot to mention, once you do that, you receive a confirmation email. Thank you for submitting your records. So that's very important. We've had instances where some architects, contrary to belief, they thought that their provider would submit their documents, and they just never did. And so unfortunately that architect could not find, his coursework documentation, and it ended up being a violation of an audit. So we don't want that to happen. That's why we said it's not a requirement to upload. At this time, it's not a requirement to upload your CE documents, but we highly encourage you to do so.
And particularly if you choose to renew through our Connect portal, because it will save those documents there for at least the 2-year requirement, if not longer. I mean, I don't know how long the system truly will retain. I can't say whether it be 25 years, 50 years, or anything like that. But for the 2-year period that's actually relevant, it will definitely have that information in there. And that's your all around best approach to renewing anyway. Paper is slower. It takes longer for it to go through the department's central cashiering. If you meet the qualifications for renewing online, we highly recommend you do it. And then you upload your documents to your Connect record. You do have to create an account. It's easy to do. Once you've done it, then you can do your renewals that way, and you can upload every time you renew. You can upload your CE documentation. It's convenient for you because then you don't have to worry about keeping it. Just to give you a little perspective, fines for not doing your CE on time are up to $1,000.
Minimum is
Okay,
250.
so
And the minimum is
follow-up
250.
question.
Mhm.
Follow-up question to that is, since it's not kind of streamlined in that fashion, is it fair to say that we are the tally keeper of the courses that we've taken and the ones that we feel qualify for the 10 CEs that's required for renewal?
So you are required to maintain coursework documentation of completion. Course providers do have transcripts that they can provide you upon request, and they can provide you copies of certificates of completion as well. So they would hold a record of what you take from, from whatever provider you choose. The responsibility does fall on the architect to maintain the records, and upon being audited, the responsibility again falls on the architect to provide their proof of completion and meeting the requirements. So yes, in a sense, you would be the gatekeeper of your own records, although the course provider would have be able to provide a copy.
And now for course, now there's as far as the course provider goes, we do not have authority to regulate them. However, if an individual, if an architect has a transcript that shows they took the course, transcripts are acceptable documentation that a course was taken if you are unable to produce a certificate.
Yeah, official transcripts from the course provider, yeah, they would be acceptable.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and we are working with NCARB, by the way, as well, to make sure that all the required information is on the certificates. It was brought to our attention recently that not all the information that we require is on those certificates. So we've spoken with NCARB leadership to make sure that happens, just so everyone knows. Okay, so Hunan Shah? Gunjan Shah, are you there?
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, yes, hi, this is Kunjan. A couple of questions. So first of all, will we get a PDF of these slides for our records so that, when we are ready to take our courses, we can refer back and find courses that match requirements?
The presentation will be online on our website.
But will there be a time limit for how long the presentation will be there?
Well, I mean, yeah, probably until we do the next presentation on this subject.
Yeah, because last year's PowerPoint presentation is very similar to this year with some minor changes. It's still posted and will be updated shortly after today. It will be posted on on our website as well for architects to go ahead and reference.
In the interim,
Okay.
in the interim, as Oscar suggested, there's, you can go to our website about midway on the homepage. You can go down where it says Architects Practice Act and click on that and then scroll down to CCR, California Code of Regulations, that section. You'll look for 165 and 166. You could look at that to get some of the information that you need in the interim while we get the presentation posted to our website, the 2024 presentation posted.
And I
Okay,
also,
sorry, go ahead.
so, yeah, I also strongly advise you, the best reference is our website, cab.ca.gov. If you click under licensees and CEs, all the relevant continuing education information is under the CE section with the included links for the regulations, CCR 165 and CCR 166.
Okay, yeah, I will definitely do that because this is definitely every 2 years when I'm getting ready to renew my CE credits, this has been an ongoing issue, is trying to find courses that are free, but also still meet requirements. So it appears that, so when you do audits, are you just coming to conclusions whether the courses qualify or not based on the certificates that are uploaded?
Again, we review the course topic and the course description to see if it meets the requirements. Just as an example that I used, I previously got in a course where zero net carbon design requirement was fairly new, and people were uploading documents of emissions related to carbon emissions, which that's related to vehicles. It has nothing to do with architecture design. So yeah, that course we did not grant credit because it was not related, even close to related to the topic of zero net carbon design.
And it's not an arbitrary determination. It's a determination grounded in what the regulation specifies as acceptable for that particular subject. So when we look at a course, like Oscar is saying, we're looking to see, does the description of the course indicate, and I'll give you a good example. If you've got ADA coursework, there are many courses where they're talking about specific plumbing products or fixtures for a kitchen remodel that are only cursorily talking about ADA in the extent of, yeah, this particular fixture is ADA accessible. It's not the same as a course that discusses how to follow the codes, follow the laws and regulations, state and federal, for implementing. So, we make a legal assessment of whether a course meets the requirements. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Sure, but it sounds like there's also subjectivity there. I mean, see, ultimately we want to, for those of us who freelance and don't have companies covering the renewal education costs, we are trying to find free education to meet the requirements. My experience has been that getting the first few hours is easy. There's plenty of courses, but when it comes down to the last 1 hour, 1.5 hour, I'm struggling to find free courses. That has generally been my experience. So it sounds, listening to you, it sounds like there's subjectivity there. It's not a black and white issue then. I mean, there may be courses that we may find meet requirements, but you may not, and then we may find out at the 11th hour.
Well, okay, number one, we're the authority. So it's our interpretation of the code that we're applying. this isn't a subjective matter of, well, I think it does. We look at the regulation that serves as the basis. That's why we direct people to look at the regulations and determine, does this coursework meet that requirement? An architect can very well, and I have my own CE that I have to take, can go to the course provider and can say, would this course meet these requirements? And if the course provider says, yes, it would, and we look at the documentation and the documentation clearly shows that it wouldn't, it's going to be, and you'll find this with any practice of law, that it's the judge or the authority that's going to make the determination. And it may seem subjective because it's different than the position you may hold, but it's based in our case on the law, on the regulations. That's what's going to take precedent in that. So I understand what you're saying, and that, as a sole practitioner, it may be difficult to find free courses. I don't know what to say beyond that. It just depends on the market. And I would guess that people are putting their time in developing these courses are going to charge a fee for it. But ultimately, the onus is upon the architect to make sure that the coursework meets the requirement. Any other questions?
No.
Okay. Okay. Fabian? I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
You pronounced it perfectly. Thank
Perfect.
you.
Welcome.
Hi. So, full transparency, National Executive Director for Society of American Registered Architects. I was just really happy to hop on this and just see what you guys are all doing. I had a technical question because, as you're probably aware, we did the Zero Net Carbon courses a couple of years ago, and those are live and online. We're trying to build out the accessibility courses right now. What is the number of questions that have to be asked upon completion to be valid for a certificate?
That is not detailed. As long as it's an assessment with a 70% minimum passing score, that's all the requirement states.
Yeah, the statute and regs are silent on that. And I think
Great.
rightly so, for not
Yeah.
being prescriptive.
Yes. Okay, great. And then I'll reach out to you guys to review our certificate because I want to make sure that it's copacetic with what you need.
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay,
Happy to work with you. Mhm.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Trying to keep up here. Okay. George. I don't see that you're.
Need to unmute yourself, sir.
See him?
Oh, I thought that was true.
No, that's William.
Yeah, he's up on top.
George, did bear with me, Tadikian? Okay, you need to unmute yourself on your system. Try the lower right-hand corner if you're using a Windows machine. If you're using a Mac, upper right-hand corner. Yeah, mic is, I'm showing that you're allowed to say your mic is enabled. It be in your own settings on your computer. Alternatively, just go ahead and put your question in the chat. We have the chat being monitored and we can respond that way. All right. In the interim, George, I'm going to move on. Jay Wallace. Jay, you'll have to do the same thing. You'll have to enable your mic on your computer. Change the settings myself. No, it's their computer. See, yeah. It would be their either lower corner, upper corner, depending on Windows, Mac. Jay, are you still with us?
Let me try that.
Yes.
You hear me? Thanks.
Yes. Jay?
I
Got
authored a
it.
couple of chats in the chat box for backup, but you know, I feel like I'm held hostage a little bit by a couple of lobbyists, maybe the accessibility and now the carbon neutral people, which I'm not going to say that those aren't great issues. It's just that there's a crisis in our country around homelessness and mental health, and we don't seem to be responding to it well with affordable housing or some sort of group home emphasis where you can get a community together and address some mental health and affordable housing. And there's very few architects that are participating in the code development process, trying to make the code work for us and make it understanding. There's some very difficult sections of it around, say, for example, openings and penetrations and all the requirements that are in that. They're spread out all over the place. And it just seems like it would be, great if you could survey the community and say, hey, what do you guys want to learn? What's challenging you in the profession? How can we address the real needs out there instead of the same content over and over and over?
Well, I can understand where you're coming from. None of the CE that is required was requested by the board. We are subject to the legislators and the lobbyists, and that's where these requirements came from. I can tell you that the board is looking at continuing education and looking at the program in the upcoming years, during our next strategic session that we're in. I don't, that's just getting off the ground. I don't know, what the outcome is going to be. But I can assure you that ADA is not going to be eliminated. That's just too much of a hot topic for the legislators. It's been in effect for 15 years. The legislature has not wanted to touch it with a 100-meter pole, and I don't see that changing. Zero net carbon design is new, and it is an AIA sponsored requirement. And so, it's pretty much, again, out of our control as to what is going to be the future of that. But like I said, I can understand where you're coming from, but a lot of it is out of our control as to what CE is imposed, upon architects, unless it were something that we, the board, sponsored. And so far, none of that. We haven't done that. We haven't sponsored any yet. Definitely, when that commentary comes up, please feel free to, submit your comment to the board. Right now, this is what we have as far as the requirements, and it's what's going to remain in effect until the legislature says otherwise.
I understand. It's difficult. I just wish there was a way that the community could express what the challenges are to the profession actually, and get.
And I'm sure, not to interrupt, I'm sorry,
no,
but
just to get training around it. So maybe that's more on the local level, but it'd be great if somehow those setting the policy had any idea what we're really up against, and that we want to help. We want to help solve the crisis in the country.
Yeah, my understanding is at some point, that is something that would be considered, reaching out, or at the very least, letting architects choose some of the continuing education. But our strategic session is just getting off the ground right now. It's a cycle that we go through every 3 to 4 years, with, looking at trends and planning out where we want to be in that time period. And so it's too early to say where the board is going to take this. Did you have anything else you want to add?
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Greg Cole. Your microphone is now, you just have to unmute it on your computer. Okay, where did he go? He just disappeared off my screen. Gregory Cole, are you still there? Greg Cole, you still there? Or did you just disappear? I'm not seeing him.
I've seen Gregory Taylor.
Yeah, but this is Greg Cole.
He disappeared from the screen.
Okay, I'm not imagining things. He did disappear. Okay, Gregory Taylor. You can now unmute your mic and you can ask your questions.
Just back to the mundane thing about the certificates here, but clarification. So from my 2023 certificate from the online.
Gregory, are you still there? You went silent.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
I had unmuted it, but it seemed to have gone back to mute. Okay, so this is about the certificate again, from my last year's in 2023 from the same company that I've used for several rounds. The certificate just says, certificate of completion. This is certified that my name has participated in net zero design, gives the number, the date, earning the credits, and that's basically it. That doesn't sound like that passes muster anymore, that it needs to have more specificity into the content of the course, or do we then need to go in and provide the I guess the abstract of the course to upload that as well? I'm just trying to get clarity on this. So
normally you would upload your certificates of completion or your transcript. We would review that, the course material. And if it's missing information, you would receive an email requesting that additional information or notifying you, hey, this certificate that you completed does not have all the required information, such as a date of completion, the name of the architect, or the number of hours completed.
Yeah, it has that, but it doesn't have sort of it, and it has the title of the design, but it doesn't have a description. I'm hearing that we now need to make sure that the certificate has a description on it.
I'm going to suggest he send you an email, maybe a scan of the certificate, and you could look at it and see. I think that'd be easier to look at the certificate.
Yeah.
So Oscar's email, we'll make sure that that's out there, or if we can get that into the chat, the CE email, the CAB CE.
Yeah.
Yeah, because since you pay for the course, you do the course, and then this is what you get. You kind of need to know ahead of time because we're ultimately responsible. We're it sounds like from the earlier question, the provider may say that they're meeting the regulations, but in the end, it may not be the case. But it's on us we bear the responsibility. So I just want to make sure we can find a way to get ahead of this and know that we're getting the right information before we sign up these courses.
And, we're also just, to know, I mean, within, reasonable constraints, if it's a problem, for the course provider to get that information, we can discuss with the course provider and let them know that none of their courses will be accepted by us if they don't make these changes. So it'd be in their best interest to make said changes if they want us to accept their courses. Otherwise, they're going, especially if they're advertising that their course meets the requirements, that's an implied warranty of sorts, although I'm not an attorney, but it's an implication that, hey, we meet your requirements. And if they really don't, and the requirements are out there, and the requirements are known, I don't think they want to have a whole bunch of people, reversing charges on them saying, hey, you lied. Right. So, we don't have a problem with, like I said, within constraint, because after all, if there's 50 companies out there, we just don't have the staff to work with 50 companies. The information is out there, and I don't know, maybe at some point in the future, we might consider a webinar to the companies, just to see whether or not we can get them all on the same page. I'll discuss that with our senior leadership and see, how we can perhaps make that happen. But yeah, I'm suggesting maybe sending it to Oscar or, through the CAB CE account, because that's an account for any questions on the CE. It's cab-ce at dca.ca.gov.
Yeah, got it. Okay. All right. Thank you.
And that's going into the chat right now as well.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions?
No, that's it. Thanks.
Okay. Greg Cole, I see that you're back, so let me go ahead and, well, your mic should be working. It's enabled. So in your lower right-hand corner, if you're on a Wintel machine, upper right-hand corner, if you're on a Mac, you just need to activate the mic on your device. Or alternately, you can submit your question in our chat and we'll respond that way. If you want to give us a thumbs up, whether that's the way you're going to go, that way we'll know to look at the chat for your specific comment. Yeah, he's going to do that. Okay, Jose Linen, sorry if I'm mispronouncing this. You can now go ahead and unmute yourself. It could be Josie. Jose, are you still? Are you able to unmute yourself?
Belong to the next.
Okay, Jose, if you are able to unmute yourself on your computer, go ahead and try it or send it in the chat. Meanwhile, William O'Keefe.
Can you hear me all right?
William, yes.
Great. Sorry, I forgot to ask this question the first time. Can you, in order to get to section 166C, would you spell out, do I go to the website of cab.ca.gov or do I go to the website of dca.ca.gov? What can you spell out?
You go to cab.ca.gov.
And then forward slash.
Then midway on the page, you're going to scroll down and you're going to see where it says Architects Practice Act. It says Quick Hits. It's in that section.
Okay, hold on. Oh, Architects Practice Act. Okay, because the first time I did it, I did continuing education. I thought that's where it was. So it's Architects Practice Act.
It's under the Architects Practice Act.
Okay.
And then you'll find it under Business and Professions Code if you want the statute, the law. Or if you want the regulations, you'll find it under the California Code of Regulations. which is roughly midway.
Yeah, I'm looking
on the page.
I've got it on my cell phone, so I'm looking at it while you're telling me. So I'm just trying to find out.
Cell phone, okay.
So to
Yeah,
get to the actual 166C section, which portion do I look at?
You're gonna look under where it says California Code of Regulations. I'm
Uh-huh.
looking off on the laptop, not looking off at,
No problem. So I'm in Architects Practice Act, then I've
Uh-huh.
got Business Professionals Code, and I've got Chapter 3, Article 2.
Scroll all the way down. You're gonna keep scrolling until you hit the Code of Regulations,
Okay.
Professional and Vocational Regulations. You're gonna see Division 2, California Architects Board.
Give me a sec. I'm getting there. Oh, so it said all the way down, right? Okay, I'll just go over that. So I just kind of flipped over the same thing.
You're
So
gonna look
both-
for Article 10, Continuing Education.
Okay, give me a sec. Article
Hey,
Oh,
this
there
is-
it is. There it is. I just found it. Okay, so I see it. Okay, now I got it. So Article 10. All right, that was what I was looking for. And then just
Yep.
click on that. Okay,
Uh-huh.
perfect. That was what I was looking for. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Take care.
This is
Thanks.
Jose. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you
Yes.
hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Listen, are you guys familiar with VNP media, where they show they give classes, and I was wondering if you are accepting those classes.
We cannot pre-approve courses. So
Okay.
we can't, we
All right, so
can't tell you, yeah, you'll need to look at the regulations, see what the requirements for the courses are, and then confirm that the information from the course description meets those requirements.
We are familiar with that provider. However, as Marcus stated, we cannot pre-approve that course. So you would have to just review the new course that you want to take and make sure that they do meet the requirements.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is it so slow to? Philip?
I think, yes, can you hear me?
Greg?
Yeah,
Yes.
finally.
Yes.
Yeah, there are
Success.
a couple of microphones on this computer. One, I kept clicking at the bottom and another one. But
Oh,
the
okay.
question is pretty basic and simple. I think I have the answer, but I had signed up for PDH Academy, and I thought your communications with me had something to do with PDH Academy. But now, after an hour, I do believe this is strictly a state informative conversation that we're having rather than anything related to the first introductory to PDH Academy. Is that correct?
Yes, the webinar was strictly the state California Architects Board requirements for continuing education.
Yes, okay. And I thought for some strange reason that PDH's first course was the explanation of what the course was. So thank you very much for taking your time with me.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Cole.
Thanks.
Okay.
Philip? Philip Morawa.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, good. I actually got through. A lot of the questions I had, you've already answered. But one thing I'm still a little unclear about is when the 70% test score is required. Could you go over that again? Is it, you said it's only for recorded courses?
Yes, so you have the option to attend a live webinar or an in-person webinar, or you have the option to take a recorded course. So recorded course, it has to.
Why would there be a difference between if it's a webinar, if you're not physically there? I mean, I assume the reason this is on here because you want to make sure we've done it, right? So if
Correct.
if you have to take a test, then you obviously had to put some actual time in. You didn't walk away from your computer. But if you're, how is that done if it's a live seminar? How do you know that I'm here?
So the providers from live webinars, they normally take an attendance, and they also provide certificates of completion or certificates of attendance that you attended and completed that webinar. So that's the difference from a recorded course. Then a recorded course, you would have to show that you proficiency. You would have to pass that test, and it would have to be a minimum of 70%.
Okay, so in any case, you need a certificate. That's the bottom line.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
And as I mentioned earlier, these requirements were what the legislature determined.
Yeah. I
So,
know.
yeah. So, it's like
politicians aren't very good at this, I'm afraid. I've been a licensed architect for over half a century. Okay. And when I first, even before I took my test, they passed some laws, the first ones on environmental things. And it was over a year, maybe 2 years, before architects really knew how to conform their designs to those laws. And in a way, you can't blame the politicians, because they did call up the AIA and say, hey, can you send a few guys over to make sure we're doing this right, I guess. And unfortunately, the people they sent, they might have been an FAIA, but the guys running the firms aren't always the people that know how to put a building together. Okay, so anyway, this has sort of been an ongoing problem for a while. I hope you guys.
15 years, it's been a requirement.
It looks like you're trying to, get it a little easier for us to understand.
And our goal in hosting this webinar is to make sure that we get the information out to the architects, and that by word of mouth, it can be passed from one colleague to another for anyone that's not here. Plus, we're going to have it on our website, because we, ideally, we would love 100% compliance where everyone does it and all the coursework. We're not trying. It's not our goal to want to cite people for failing to comply. We would much rather be 100% compliance, but realistically, that's just not the case, and we want to make sure the information is out there so that it's helpful. I see that we have, if this will let me, John, only identifier. John, you're free to unmute yourself. And Dustin has a question as well. Once John has had an opportunity, and I'm not seeing John. Dustin is asking, can you appeal a negative decision by CAB? So if Dustin, you're referring to, if you get a citation, can you request an appeal? Oscar?
Yes. Upon being audited, and if you are found non-compliant, you would receive a citation in the mail. Once you receive the citation in the mail, you have 30 days to appeal or pay the citation. And what that appeal is you have the choice for either an informal conference with our executive officers, my manager Marcus and myself, or you have the option for a formal conference.
Formal hearing.
Yeah, a formal hearing.
An informal conference is you would present additional information that you think might persuade us to either dismiss the citation or lower the penalty. An administrative hearing is a formal hearing by the Office of Administrative Hearings. It's less efficient for the architect because it can take up to a year to get a hearing date. And so it would drag out the matter for them, but it is an option that exists. And if you request an informal conference, when that decision is made, you would also have one more opportunity to request an official administrative hearing. But again, like I said, it can take a year before one can get a hearing date, and that's just because they handle all the hearings of this nature. But those are options afforded an individual when we cite them. John, we're going to try again. You should be able to activate your mic. I'm showing that you're allowed to do it. Are you having technical issues with the microphone? If so, try sending your question through our chat.
John did send a question through the chat. If I retire my license for say 4 years and then decide to renew it, would I have to show 30 hours of continuing education?
Nope, it's not cumulative. But you would have to do at least 10 hours since to renew it is a requirement. So you would have 10, not 30.
Yes, and that is as mentioned, yeah, the retired license, yeah, you can retire it, and you have up to 5 years before it's completely retired and non-renewable. So forever, for that matter, yeah, the retired licenses are meant for that to bring your license to a formal end. It is not intended for you to use this as another way to not complete your CE. Because as Marcus said, when you do want to renew your license, you will be required to complete all the CE required for that renewal.
Furthermore, if you retire your license, you would have to, if you're still eligible for renewal, pay all back fees, all back license fees, accrued penalties, in addition to doing the 10 hours of CE, because you're effectively doing a renewal. You're deciding to come out of retirement and to renew your license. And as Oscar said, once the 5th year tolls, the license is non-renewable. And if you want to return to practice, you must meet current day requirements to practice, which includes internship, includes all of the ARE, because if you did not take the ARE, if you took the professional exam, the qualifying exam, the 36-hour 4-part exam, you would have to take the ARE because that's what's currently required. So we definitely advise people to think about that. If you have any questions about retired licenses or retiring your license, please contact our office. CAB Licensing has an email account of its own. I believe it's CAB-licensing for that one. And you can shoot your question there. The email address is going to go into the chat. CAB-license.
Oh, okay. For licensing, not Canada.
Yeah, CAB-licensing, yeah. And someone will respond to that question. Does that help? Okay, so I'm going to guess Cezanne?
Hello. Thank you for this webinar, and it's very helpful. So my question is that you said that we can keep our CE in the, your website. Where is the location that, we can keep it and make sure that we have it in the time that.
Okay, so you're talking about renewing your license?
Yeah.
Okay, so you go to, it's Connect, common spelling. Actually, we'll put the address to the application system in the chat, but you would go to Connect when it's time for you to renew. You would go there, start a license renewal application, and as you go through the process of completing that application, you would go ahead and upload your document when you get to the CE question, if you say yes, it'll give you the option to upload, and you can upload then, and then that's saved with that application. And so if we do an audit, we can check there and see whether you've submitted your documentation that way. And that's what we're recommending that all architects do. So spread it worldwide, that it's best to go through our online system and upload the CE documentation then, so they know it's in the system, and then it'll also be sort of a record that the coursework was done. But it's important to note that does not alleviate your requirement under the law to keep a copy just in case. That's still a requirement, and I highly recommend that you do that in addition to uploading it. It's better to have more copies than not enough. Just saying. Did that help?
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for your time joining us for this webinar. As we hit the 1 o'clock hour, we'll be bringing the webinar to a close. The email addresses are in the chat. Oscar, does the presentation have any more?
Yes. That's all we had, actually, the presentation.
Does it have any more, like with the email address, or is it just what's in the chat?
Yeah, no, it just has our web address and my email address.
Okay. So, yeah, we do have the email addresses in the chat. Bethany has been helping us with monitoring the chat today. Oscar doing the presentation, myself piping in my 2 cents worth where necessary. Again, we thank you all for joining us. And again, if you have any questions, please reach out to the board. We'd be more than happy to help you. At this time, we are going to sign off. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you for your time.